This is TWiT.
The reason we brought Corey here, well, first of all, because anytime Corey's willing to talk to me, I will talk to Corey. I love him. One of my favorite authors and one of the smartest people I know, is to talk about this Facebook thing. Now, what standing do you have, Corey? You deleted Facebook 10 years ago.
Well, I guess I have the standing of an early adopter.
You were smart. I have deleted Facebook. There is a difference in deleting and deactivating.
Of course there is.
But with deletion, I have one more week. If I can keep from logging into Facebook for one more week, they say they'll delete my most of my whatever they can figure out is my data. They'll delete, and I didn't do it because I'm worried about Facebook. I did it because I want to punish Facebook, frankly. But it's my contention that no matter what Mark Zuckerberg does, whatever he says on CNN, whatever apologies he makes, this is fundamentally Facebook's business, is collecting as much data about you as they can and selling it to advertisers and sometimes to people besides advertisers, like the Russian government. There's no way. Can Facebook fix this?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm very worried. I'm very leery of falling into the trap that I think serves Facebook very well, of saying it is unimaginable that we could have a service like Facebook that didn't spy on you, right? Like that the two are like peanut butter and chocolate. Like you'll never get them apart. You know, this idea of like talking to your friends and being spied on. Because I can imagine how you'd build a service like that. It's not like someone came down off a mountain with like 2 stone tablets that said, stop rotating your log files, start mining them for market intelligence, right? So I can imagine how that service might exist. And if you're looking for a reason to quit Facebook, one of them might be that if there's someone out there who's shopping for capital or for free software project contributors or for someone to help them work on a project that's Facebook without the spying, the fact that people are quitting Facebook in droves will help that person out. And, you know, I'm actually a big believer that among the ways that we change the world is by writing code. People have observed during this time of the techlash that there are unaccountable engineers who write software without a thought of the ethics to it and then affect the lives of billions of people. And so now we have accountable engineers who want to write software, who are thinking about ethics, and they can affect the lives of billions of people for the better, you know, in the same way that people who write ad blockers help people who want to look at the web without being spied on do that and push back against invasive surveillance advertising. You could imagine someone fielding a service like Facebook that could even help you bridge the gap between Facebook and the rest of the world, or Facebook and some new service, by, say, logging into Facebook on your behalf using a little autopilot script, grabbing all the messages waiting for you, bringing them into the new service. Ooh. You know, that's what Facebook did. They had a tool like that for MySpace when they launched.
Right.
Now, Facebook has subsequently sued a competitor of theirs for doing exactly that, for writing a little tool that lets Facebook users automatically send messages to their friends saying, help me stop using Facebook. But, you know, I do think that, like, part of the answer is going to be writing good code. Part of the answer to bad code is always going to be writing good code. It's not the whole answer, but it's certainly an answer that I think people who are watching your show are able to engage with in ways that maybe the wider world can't.
One of the things that concerns me about this is that this sort of thing leads to lawmakers, to politicians saying, what we need is more laws about this. And what we just have said is, it turns out those laws that they generate end up doing more harm than good.
Although
That's
Zuck's
one of my
even
worries
said,
here.
basically, regulate me.
Stop
me. Stop me before I kill again.
That's right. I can't help myself. This is the whole core problem, right? Is that this is Facebook's business model, and not the third-party part, but the first-party part. And that's why they kind of don't want anyone talking about it, because once you start to think about it, you realize that you're the product of this service.
Corey Gargron of Mastodon did a Medium post saying, "Hey, we're open source. We don't mine data. You could join us." Do you use something instead of Facebook that you feel like is better?
I use Twitter, and I kind of feel like there's this 2x2 grid that I use when I think about new technologies that I might become accustomed to or make part of my daily life. And so on the one axis is like control freakery, like how free are you when you use the service? How much do they care about controlling everything you do? So like Very control freaky would be Apple. Not very control freaky would be, say, Google, right? And then on the other axis, you have how spying are they? And so over here, we don't care what you're doing. And over here is we watch everything you do and we're super creepy. And, on this axis might be like GNU Linux. And on this end is, say, Facebook and Google.
Right.
Facebook is at the top of both, right? Facebook wants to control every single thing you do, and they want to spy on everything you do. They want the whole web to disappear inside of Facebook, and they want to spy on you while you use it. Apple wants the whole web to disappear inside of Apple, but they're not going to spy on you while you use it. They're just going to control you while you use it. Google has figured out how to spy on you wherever the web is, and so they don't care if the whole web lands inside of Google. So long as it doesn't land inside of Facebook and Apple, they're fine because they can spy on you everywhere.
To some degree, that's the Facebook problem, too. Even if you don't have a Facebook account, Facebook still gathers information about you with its like buttons everywhere.
Yeah, and I have an ad blocker, but I figured out a long time ago that there are a bunch of websites I didn't want to accidentally click on links to. And so I run a Ubuntu, and it's got a host file, Etsy hosts. Yeah. And so I just went in there and I mapped all of the websites I never want to see again, like Daily Mail and Facebook and Instagram, to 0.0.0.0.
Would you share that hosts list? Do you post that anywhere on your blog or something?
I guess I should. I mean, it's literally like 7 websites I hate, right?
You can probably think of what they might be, I guess. You've given us a few to start. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. That way you can't see them. They're just gone.
Is the GDPR stuff in Europe a step in the right direction? Again, it's regulation. Is that helpful to users, or is that just going to be toothless?
No, I think it will be. I mean, it's not like perfect by any means. And part of the problem is that the cost of compliance is going to be relatively high. And so it's going to favor incumbents. It's going to favor people who can build out like a bunch of compliance software and have a compliance department. And it's the kind of thing that Facebook 2018 could do, but maybe Facebook 2008 couldn't have afforded. And the problem is that the competitor to Facebook 2008 looks a lot, or 2018 rather, looks a lot more like Facebook 2008 in terms of its resources than Facebook 2018. And this is the real problem with regulation, is not that there isn't such a thing as good regulation, but that the only people who get a seat at the table during regulation, generally speaking, are the companies that are about to be regulated, not the companies that don't exist yet. And the companies that are about to be regulated, they want to be sure that whatever the regulation is, that it's not going to destroy their business model. It can hurt their business model, but they have to be able to stay in business. It's very hard for a regulator to have the guts to say to a company, your business is just illegitimate, right? Like, I know that you're in the storing oily rags in people's garages business, and that is like unsafe no matter what, but we're going to come up with like a minimum set of sprinkler heads you're going to need, because we're just not going to tell the billion-dollar oily rags in people's garages industry that it's time for you to go away. Eventually they do, right? Like eventually they say, sorry, you can't sell thalidomide anymore. Those radium suppositories have got to go.
But nobody's going to put Equifax out of business.
Yeah, nobody's going to put Equifax out of business. And so the risk is that regulators are only going to take account of the needs of the and parameters of the businesses that exist, which may just create a kind of moat around them that all their competitors that come up in the future won't be able to get across. And that's the kind of the poison pill of regulation. Now, with the GDPR, I think there's something else going on. So the really interesting dynamic, I think, of the GDPR is it's a kind of quiet trade war. There are American elements who froth at the mouth and talk about how this is just Europe punishing American companies. I think to a certain extent, it really is Europe punishing American companies, right? But for that reason, I think it's actually got some teeth in it in a way that a regulation that was merely about like satisfying what, the syllogism, something must be done. Hey, look, we just did something. Job's over, right? That this is like, this actually gets to some real meaty stuff that does, look a lot more like maybe we should stop storing oily rags in everyone's garages and not like, let's count how many fire extinguishers you need when you're going to store oily rags everywhere.
I really like what you're saying, and I think that I think maybe this is something we can really start to promote, which is the people who watch this network, the people who are geeks, the people who are coders. This is This is our chance to step up and say, what about ethical coders? What about ethical software? What about doing it ourselves instead of trying to regulate it? This is a chance to step up. I really like that message, Corey. I hope that's...
I think it's and not or and not XOR, right? That we probably do need good rules. I think a rule that said you can't force users into binding arbitration for losses due to privacy breaches. So, that would go a long way.
Yeah.
Because imagine, so right now we have this kind of distributed Monte Carlo sim attack against data breaches where you have all these contingency, no win, no fee lawyers who show up in court against companies that have done horrific damage to their customers that is hard to quantify because it's 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, someone will merge this lost data set and that lost data set and make something really harmful to the users. And they're going before judge after judge after judge, trying to make these companies internalize the whole cost of recklessly storing all our oily rags in their garage. And eventually, one of them is going to get to it, right? One of them is going to go, look, this is the breach that is going to be used to forge duplicate deeds by identity thieves to the houses of 1% of the people in this breach, and they're all going to have their houses stolen from them. So the correct remedy here is 1% of the total real estate holdings of the 80 million people or 50 million people in this breach, right? Eventually, some judge is going to gavel down that number. Some jury is going to award that number. And then all the insurers, all the reinsurers, they're going to turn around and they're going to go to the boards of directors and they're going to say, explain to me the cost benefit of you storing this data and why we should trust that you aren't going to land us in the position of writing $1 billion check for your liability. So that's a law that we can imagine that just says in the most foundationally fair way, companies shouldn't be able to say, by being dumb enough to be our customer, you waive all our legal rights. If we get that into law, we get a whole bunch more potential legal action down the road that would discipline firms and force them to be mindful of our private data, to only collect the data they need, only store it for as long as it's useful, to not speculatively warehouse data, to not share data recklessly. And that's a legal thing we could do. And it also invokes markets because it changes their profit and loss. And that's a thing that companies really are attuned to. They may not care about ethics all the time, but they certainly watch their bottom lines. And it also starts to change the norms, right? That it starts to change what looks like the right way to design a service, what looks like the right way to use a service, so that when people show up at a service and the first thing you need to do in order to be onboarded is agree to sign away all your legal rights or agree to be spied on or give up your address book, people don't go, oh yeah, no, that's the thing that all the services do. I guess that's okay. They go, oh my God, that looks so shady. I'm not signing up for this service. And that's what Larry Lessig says. He says the world is regulated by 4 forces. You've got code, law, norms, and markets. What's legal, what's technically possible, what's ethically, what's considered ethical, and what's profitable. And by moving the needle on all of those things, we start to affect change. Now, I think the people watching this show, they probably better at the code than everything else. But I bet you guys have got a really good look at norms too, because I bet you're the people who everyone in your life calls up and says, what's a good way to use technology?
Yeah.
Is it okay that I'm using it this way? I think it's time we stop going, it'll all be fine. And we start saying, actually, maybe you should think twice about this.
Yeah. And I'm going to add that third part too, law, because I think a lot of geeks kind of say, I don't want to have anything to do with government. I'm not going to vote. I don't want to be political. It's just a mess. It's disgusting. I don't like the process. And maybe it's time that we also step forward and let's get law involved here. And that's a simple change, just to get a law that says you're not forced into arbitration, that you can sue if your privacy has been breached by poor behavior by a company. That's a simple thing. We could sneak that one in under the radar at least, right?
Oh, maybe. I think that's the kind of thing that tends to not get stuck in as a rider at the last minute.
Yeah.
But it is the kind of thing that, we're headed in for a super contested midterm election in which there's going to be massive turnover in Congress. And candidates are looking for issues they can differentiate themselves on. I don't think there's anyone in America who woke up this morning and said, I wish that I had to give up more of my legal rights in order to conduct my daily round.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so glad that when I see my doctor, I have to sign a piece of paper that says I can't sue them if they kill me.
Yeah.
That's,
Really, good point. I love that. When are you running for Congress, Corey? I'll vote for you.
Well, one, I'm
He's
Canadian. I'm
Canadian.
here on a green card. Two, I'm much better outside the tent pissing him than inside the tent pissing him.
Well, I'm definitely going to move to Massachusetts and vote for Brianna Wu, and I'm thinking if we get more geeks running, people who understand this issue, and more geeks involved and voting and really pushing the issues they care about, this is something we can fix. You've given me great hope. Everybody should go to craphound.com. That's where you can get Corey's books. The latest, Walkaway, is a page burner. Really a fabulous, fabulous novel. We talked to Corey on Triangulation when it came out about a year. It's been a year. I can't believe it.
And
Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
That's right. You're looking at books being sold on the author's website without DRM.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
And no license agreement. So the only agreement is don't violate copyright law. It's the same as every book you've ever bought.
And
There's
I
also
love
a super cool audio. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say you're doing your own audio versions, which is fantastic.
Yeah, Will Wheaton, Amber Benson, Amanda Palmer, and a cast of thousands read Walkaway, and they did such a good job. It's great.
And you can get all of that at Corey's website, craphound.com. Corey, thank you so much. Thanks for being Corey.
Thanks.
Yeah,
All
really
right,
appreciate
nice talking to you.
The great Cory Doctorow.